you really want to do something great, you can't do it alone. And if you're gonna do something great, you have to understand and accept, I'm good at this. And these are all of my weaknesses. And instead of trying to be everything to everyone, I'm going to focus on what I do, and I'm going to find the best person for this spot.
Yeah.
And then the best person for this spot, and having that team that you trust.
Welcome to the In the Arena podcast. My name is Jared Miguez, a co-host on this podcast that brings you the inspiring stories of our clients who are leaders and innovators across different industries in Southeast Louisiana. They are visionary entrepreneurs, savvy real estate professionals, media creators, military business owners, and community champions. And we are going to showcase the remarkable achievements and share their personal stories. Tune in for insightful conversations, valuable lessons, and motivational stories that are going to reveal their secrets to success and offer you insights to help you on your own path. Welcome to In the Arena podcast. All right, guys, welcome to the In the Arena podcast.
Hey.
Happy to be here.
I'm
Benson
excited.
boys.
Yeah, the Benson brothers. I was going to say Sawyer brothers, but no, not Sawyer brothers. Benson
I like the
brothers.
Sawyer brothers.
Dang, all right.
I'm cool with flying under his banner.
I just have to address one thing before we get started, though. Y'all didn't tell us to wear boots.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
You
sorry.
show up, you're kicking it in here with your boots, and I feel left out. It was a missed opportunity for us.
I agree.
It was an intentional decision. I just want you guys to know we love y'all and we respect you. So last night we were like, all right, dude.
You only bring the boots out when you respect someone.
Let's
It's
roll
a
out hard.
Serious, yeah, it's a serious intention. It's kind of like my heels, but the boots bring a different vibe. Next time, let me know.
Well, shout out to Tacova.
Yeah, there you go. They actually sponsor our podcast.
First plug.
Wonderful.
One of the smaller sponsors.
Smaller,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm really excited about this conversation because independently of y'all being brothers, I've become really good friends with both of you in totally different ways. And so me and Sam have been doing real estate together for a long time. And as Sawyer's on to his new ventures, we're going to be doing some work with you too. So all in the commercial real estate segment. So we talk a lot about the purpose of this podcast, and it's really to help our business owners learn how to grow their business. And one of our segments, we talk about commercial real estate because it's an easy way for you to add wealth and add another way of growing and scaling your business, right? And so
Enhancing that balance sheet.
exactly. So we're going to talk a lot about that, but let's start off with just giving a little bit of backstory. Y'all got a big family. It's interesting, y'all grew up homeschool, which is, I'm from Alexandria, and we didn't do that. And, you guys doing that, but all of y'all turned out to be very, y'all are go-getters, right? And so how did y'all get into the real estate game to begin with?
I think, so we grew up super scrappy. And I think that's something that's really important to remember. We grew up with a blue-collar father who did home repair, was a wedding photographer, did so many different things, and he was extremely entrepreneurial before being an entrepreneur was something that was a cool thing to be.
He was a hustler.
He was a hustler.
He's a hustler.
Big
Gotta
time.
love
And
a
my mom
hustler.
too. My mom was raising 10 kids. That alone is
That's a hustle.
monumental task of organization and personality clashes and management. And then also she was a court reporter, and then she became what's called a scopist, which is someone who does kind of the proofreading on the back end of the court reporting, so that she could work from home. So I saw my mom work a remote job in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so our parents were just extremely entrepreneurial, extremely bootstrappy, and resourceful. And we didn't have a ton of money growing up. So everything that you wanted, especially being with one of 10 kids.
Yeah.
You want a fish tank? You go cut some grass. You go bake some cookies and sell them to the neighbors. You do what you got to do to get that money. And so that was always something that was kind of forefront on our minds. And so that level of entrepreneurial spirit was always kind of there.
Dude, I
And
love that.
whenever you step back and start looking at other opportunities for both of us, I think real estate just kind of jumped out as something that is scalable, that has a relatively stable and consistent market, and had opportunity that you could reasonably approach. And so that's kind of how we leaned into it.
I love how the answer is never no. It's like, you want it, you go get it. The answer, there's a way to do it. I'm not going to tell you no, but I'm not going to do it for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Favorite 3 words is not I love you. It's figure it out.
Well, and look, we have a lot of people too that we love our family, right? And it's a super unique thing to, number one, come from a big family, but also in 2025 to actually have real relationships with your family.
Yeah.
Like
Like
my
actually
siblings
like
are my
them.
best friends.
Yeah.
And the general public, anytime somebody meets us, they'll always ask, that's cool. Well, how did you guys get that way? And the reality is how we got that way. I don't think a lot of people would really want their kids to replicate. Like, I mean, my first business was actually Sora was my business partner. We wanted to go to a summer camp that the church was going to, and I don't even remember how much money it was. And asking our parents for money was never a thing. And so Sora and I got home and we were like, dude, what are we gonna do? And we went around the neighborhood and we sold bundt cakes. And Sawyer and I made so many bundt cakes one summer that I'm telling you, I mean, they were, you know, from the Walmart or wherever it was that we got the mix. And
No, you did make them.
Oh, yes.
Yes. We paid one of our friends to ride his bike to Walmart, which in Marrero is like anything that's 5 minutes away is long distance.
Yeah.
And so we paid him like $10 or something to ride
So
miles.
you had to invest in this
Yeah,
venture.
oh,
You made an investment in this venture and got the return.
So
totally
we did that. And I think that we baked for probably 3 or 4 days straight.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think that there was a lesson in it where it's like we wanted something, we figured it out. But I think that you will agree with me. The fire that really was ignited in me was being a young kid trying to figure it out. When we would go to deliver these cakes that we maybe charged $10 for, which what a markup, you would see these adults standing at their door going, you guys are doing what? Like you're actually working to do this.
Yeah.
And to see these people that were older than us look at us and go, oh yeah, you're going somewhere. Like you figured out the secret sauce, which is if you want something, you can't wait around and just say, well, where's it going to come from? And so I think that for the both of us, that really started. And after bundt cakes, it was cutting grass. And I mean, it was anything that we thought we could do to make a little bit of money. We would sit down and honestly, still to this day, I call Sawyer and I'm like, hey man, what do you think about this? And he's like, yeah. So you asked how real estate formally came up in the family was Sawyer was in school and I was working for a local company in town. It was an event rental company and I'd gotten really blessed and I was able to run the company as the VP and I loved it, but COVID hit. And we had some, let's call them organizational issues or differences between, you know, myself and the individual who owned the business. And I called Sawyer one day and he was in Germany and I just said, man, I don't know what to do. And he kind of got quiet on the phone and he was like, Samuel, you've always talked about real estate. Why don't you just do it? He was like, the world is at ground zero. Why don't you just shoot for it? The worst you can do is fail. And I was like, dude, and I will say this is the most valuable thing in my mind of having a big family is having people that you know love you and want nothing but the best for you. But it gives you the ability that if I call Sawyer and he's like, I would do it, even if I'm scared, even if I'm like, there's no way this is going to work. If he tells me, yeah, I would do it, I'm like, cool. If you think it'll work, then that's all I need.
It's funny. I had the same interaction whenever I wanted to start this company. I went to Sawyer. I'm like, "Did you do it?" He was like, yeah, you should do it. Yeah.
And I love those. I mean, this is one of my favorite parts about having a more, I guess, formal education around finance and just the mathematics of business is it gives me the security to take what feels intuitively true, but then to validate that on an Excel sheet or just trying to see what it looks like systematically. And it to some degree really justifies all of the boring years of just drudgery of things that I've long forgotten now that were useless to me, but give you that foundational modeling skill to be able to say, that might be a good idea. Let's look at it. And really being able to structure it out formally and say, no, this does make sense. It makes sense logically. It makes sense emotionally. It's a message that people will understand and be able to get what we're doing and functionally the economics work. And when you have all of those things, it really gives you the confidence to say, I am making a good decision here. And this now only hinges upon my ability to execute, which I know both of you and I feel Sam and I both feel similarly. If I have the idea ahead, executing for me is the easy part.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's taking that leap and it's also putting the pieces together when it's from this abstraction to this is what I'm doing. Here is my plan. Here's my strategy to execute this plan. And now all I have to do is go.
Yeah.
And that's the point that I'm always trying to get to when I'm coming from this might be a good idea. I'm trying to get to the go. And so that's a good mental model.
Making decisions on facts.
Yeah.
It's kind of a lost art. Everybody wants to make decisions on emotions all the time. And Jared's probably like, oh my gosh, here she is saying it again, because I'm constantly preaching it every single day. It's like, yes, feelings are exciting. That won't always be your motivation, right? You got to have the discipline and you got to have the facts. So it feels good. Now let's look at it.
Yeah. And the emotions, I think for a while, and this is not what you're implying, but for a while I went super draconian, super dry with all of my planning. And I really neglected the human element, which you also can't do. But I think with a good structure, which is what I was saying, it feels right and it's communicatable to other people. Your vision of what you're doing, because you always need other people. Like, for example, this y'all's law collective that you have here, y'all's mission is super clear, your branding is super clear. When you walk in, the aesthetic of the building is clear. Your staff has a certain feeling in here of relaxed.
Keep going.
It's true. It's relaxed, it's professional, it's organized, and people are comfortable while they're executing their core their core tasks. And that is something that does not just happen. I mean, you really have to cultivate that. And the leadership that y'all have here is so clearly seen all the way through the organization. It's super impressive. It's admirable, really.
I appreciate that. I mean, and when we were building out the model, like I went to Lauren, like I was spending all day doing it, but I'd go to her and she's like poking a hole in the numbers, poke the hole in the numbers before I actually. Then we met with you at Cafe, and I said, "What do you think about this?" And you were like, "All right, makes sense," because we had gone through the numbers several times to get to the point where we were comfortable having a clear picture of where we were going. Did the expenses make sense? Did we did it all? Was it clear? And even though the market was not great at the time, we didn't have to. We didn't have to have the 2020 numbers for us to actually make the business make sense. Yeah. So it allowed us to take that step and actually do it. I do want to ask you this, because I have a lot of people, and you see people getting into martial arts now because of the focus that it gives people. No, and I know you're a big jiu-jitsu guy, but y'all's family grew up doing that. How much of an impact has that made on your discipline, your work ethic, all that type of stuff?
I'll let you go first.
What did y'all practice when y'all were kids?
So it was a mix of Tang Soo Do and Muay Kwan.
And for the people in the back that have no idea what you're talking about,
it is one of the traditional martial arts that came out of Korea, and most of the early karate schools here, from I would say even from the 30s and 40s all the way up until really mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu became more prominent in the late 90s, was really the only thing that you were seeing in America. Gotcha. So this was
Karate Kid. I'm good. I have a clear understanding. Yeah. Got it.
Good enough.
Yes. I think for us, or I'll speak for myself specifically, a lot of the martial arts, really what it taught us was discipline. And look, it was, whenever I look back on our life, and we lived quite a life, especially during our childhood, the school was a safe haven. And I don't mean the school was a safe haven in a sense of like, we went and we played and we had fun. There was structure. And as a young kid, a young boy, when our life was in absolute turmoil, going to some place where you knew that there was rules and regulations was incredible. Now, we also had an incredible instructor, Master Chris Benoit, who is like a second father to the both of us. But Master Chris was serious. He meant business. Yeah. And I mean, look, man, it was there was so much that we did that I'm sure if we did now, you would get in a lot of trouble for. But
canceled.
100. Oh, good God! But we loved it. I mean, it was summer camps where we would work out in a huge dojo and we would run blocks, and it was the best time. But really, what it taught us was if you wanted something, there was steps to it. Now, life isn't like that, but what it's helped us realize is that in that structure of, okay, well, I'm a white belt. This is the next step that I want to get to. What are the things that I have to learn? You can take those principles and say, well, my income is this, and I want it to be here. Or my business is here, and I want it to be here. What are those practical, actionable steps that we can start to take next? Yeah. So for me, I think it was truly just the discipline, and also realizing that, like, life is hard, man. And we were fortunate. And honestly, I think one of the things that aids us the most is we, at such a young age, had a very realistic view of life, where growing up, maybe I felt like it was kind of like stolen from us, the innocence of I'm just a kid. We never really had that opportunity. But now looking at it, we realize that while it maybe wasn't the most fun, it's the biggest blessing because, we wake up and anything that we approach, if it's a new business idea or anything that we want to do, we're like, man, this is going to suck for a good 8 months.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, all right, cool, handshake, and it sucks for 8 months. But that the work that's required is going to give you the desired outcome. And if it's worth it, knowing that you've got X amount of time of like, good Lord, this is going to be miserable. And at the end you say it's worth it, then you've calculated the cost.
Yeah.
I think there's a direct correlation. Like,
100%.
if it's real shitty, then it's going to be real good.
100%.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to pay the entrance fee on anything. I mean, martial arts has been a part of my life since I was 5 years old. And it has been, and I realized this because our life and our childhood was in many cases really, really chaotic and lacked any type of linear structure. And with 9 siblings, nothing lasts. Nothing is yours. If you have something you like, it's broken or gone in a week. And so there is nothing that you have like, oh, this was my toy from when I was 5.
No attachments.
There was nothing like that. And I had this moment of realization about 5 years ago that martial arts is the only red thread that I can think of in my entire life from childhood till now. And so it has played a crucial role in my life. It was one of my first official jobs, was being a martial arts instructor for several years whenever we moved from the West Bank to the North Shore here. And I taught kids classes for years and adult classes for years. And so to see from also an instructor's vantage point, I was able to see the things that I gained from it as a very young man, which was everything that Sam said is dead on. Things are difficult. There are going to be people who are better than you. You will lose, and you will lose often. You will fail, and you will fail often. And that is not a death sentence. That is a part of the process. And that you could also see the different personalities. Those who refused to fail never got better. They quit. Yeah. And so all of these, the life lessons that happen in the microcosm of a martial arts studio is so profound and so indicative of life that it's hard to even narrow it down to one thing. I do want to say this before we change topics, though. Put your kids in jiu-jitsu. Where's the camera that I'm looking at? Put your kids in jiu-jitsu.
Ooh, with the finger. It's official.
Convergent Jiu-Jitsu off of 190 is a great jiu-jitsu school here. NOLA BJJ in New Orleans. These are 2 gyms I've trained at a lot, and great people. But if you want your children to be physically confident, to understand how to work cooperatively with kids in a conflictual environment, up and close and personal, like you are with jiu-jitsu, put them in jiu-jitsu. And it's safe for their bodies. It will not give them concussions like we got growing up, getting kicked in the head and dropped on concrete.
Or playing football. How old?
I would say from 5 on up is good. And let me tell you something. I see some 12, 13, 14-year-old kids now that jiu-jitsu has raised in popularity. These kids are amazing. Yeah. Technically speaking, they're better than me, and I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 10 years. The things they do is incredible because their minds are fluid, their bodies are flexible, and they just develop under the pressure of doing that type of martial art. They are so cool to see. Like that is it's awesome.
Can't afford another freaking sport, man. Like, why are you doing
Drop
this?
the other ones.
But Dylan would be
do
awesome
jiu-jitsu.
Oh, dude,
Dylan
she would be
better
an
than that.
animal.
Yeah.
She's got the mentality that would be that would be
Unleash the
wild.
beast. So the last thing before we kind of transition from y'all's childhood, y'all both had very similar values. I don't know if y'all read each other's answers to the questions we asked, but honesty and transparency was what Sam said, and then Sam had 3 words: honesty, transparency, integrity. Sawyer's was a lot longer of a paragraph there.
Yeah, it was a paragrapaph that boils down to.
But you had kindness and honesty and speaking to people directly and things like that. So I think that I met your mom. She's a saint.
Oh, she's
one
amazing.
of the coolest people on the planet.
Best part of your wedding. I mean, y'all were cool.
Truly, no.
But meeting her was a highlight.
I knew what was going to happen.
My mom's the best part of most things that we did. Yeah, she's awesome.
But so I'm sure that she had a part in that. I'm sure that martial arts had a part in the fact that y'all had very similar values, even though y'all presented them differently. They were very much the same. So let's talk about what y'all are doing now. So I know you have kind of an announcement to make, but you have a really cool project you're working on. What are you working on now?
Right. So about 6 or 7 months ago, I took on the role as the chief credit officer of NOLA Bank, which is a bank that's in organization. We're actually in our capital raise right now, and in the very final stages of getting our charter completed, which is extremely exciting. It's the first charter that's been done in over 10 years in New Orleans.
Wow.
And so these charters are really difficult to get. And our team worked extremely, extremely hard over the past year and a half, maybe close to 2 years now, to accomplish that alone. We have a great board of directors. And so I have a high level of confidence that this will move forward. We're designated as a minority deposit institution, which means that we are focusing on underserved communities as well as the regular commercial banking elements that most community banks do. But we have that additional arm where we're taking the communities of New Orleans that are sometimes overlooked into consideration. And so, yeah, I'm very, very excited about that. I love the analytical side of banking. I love banking in general. So it's also a very exciting opportunity for me to be able to step into a bank, an executive position where I can look at things in its totality, work with our CEO, Joe Omner, who's an amazing banker, our CFO, and our team is just that we've put together is so incredible. So I'm very, very excited about that.
Nice. So it's like, what's the time frame in order for the bank to be up and running?
We are hoping that by the end of June, that we will have the capital raise completed and we'll be able to open our doors. We have a physical location already. And so a lot of things when you're starting a bank, because not many people have done that in the last 15 years countrywide.
Yeah.
I believe it's less than 20 charters in the last 15 years in the nation. That could be an incorrect stat, but I believe it's close to that. So there's not many models to go out, to go off of. And because you're dealing with regular startup economics, capital raises, how are you going to pay the people?
In Louisiana.
Yes. How are you going to pay good people that are going to build the bank while you're building the bank? And so they're the regular economics, but you also have the regulatory element. So there's been a lot of cart before the horse and just parallel building, knowing that they will converge at some point, and we just have to focus on what we need to focus on, even though right now the timing and the big picture doesn't come together. And so that's been the kind of the game we've been playing. But I think our team has done such a fantastic job with that. In retrospect, have a hard time thinking of how we could have done it better.
Yeah, that's great.
Everything has really just rolled.
Persistent action.
Yeah.
Whenever an entrepreneur comes to us and they want to start something and there's nothing that they can mimic, right? So they actually have to invent the wheel. I'm like, just keep taking action.
Yes.
Let's just keep making smart, actionable steps. That sounds like that's what y'all did.
That's exactly
I'm excited.
Yeah. What can we do? And then we do it. Yeah. We line it up and then we don't sit in. If you talk about an idea long enough, it becomes a bad idea.
Yeah, it'll die.
So you have to say, this needs to be done. Who are the key people who feel the most competent within those ranges? Take ownership over it, establish who's going to kind of lead the organizational side of that particular project, and then you go until it's done.
Yeah.
It's really not that complicated. Yeah. And that's really what we've done so far and we'll continue to do as the bank gets funded, gets started, and grows as a successful, healthy bank.
Yeah. So yesterday we had the CIO of LED, and he was speaking on a panel at our business event, our master class. And what he boiled everything down to for the development in Louisiana is building things from the ground up. So I can do nothing more than applaud y'all for taking that step, for putting in that commitment. And then we as a community have to go support it, right? Because this is where that income and that growth stays here. Because we can talk all day about bringing the business to our community, and we're doing a decent job at that, better now, and luckily we have someone like that CIO that's out there working for it. But these businesses that are putting in the effort to start from the ground up, that are going to keep revenue here and employ residents here, that's what we have to support. Yeah, absolutely. And especially when it comes to banking as a whole, because this is a business-based podcast where we're talking about scaling. One of the major features in scaling is not just leadership, which is extraordinarily important, but sometimes it's just capital. And the number one place that we gain capital from are these community banks. If you go to Chase and say, hey, I'm a new company, I have this house, they're going to laugh at you or lend you the amount of money you have in their deposit accounts. So community banks are really the backbone of the American economy. And this is just a feature of the way that our economics are structured. And so
with that being said, we've seen a lot of consolidation. I'm sure everyone has heard Bank A is buying Bank B.
Yep.
And then
Absolutely.
a few months later, bigger bank, big regional bank that you've never heard of is buying that one who just bought the one. So it's this constant bigger fish walking in and swallowing the smaller fish. But what that's doing is it's putting pressure on the entrepreneurial class of America. And so really with us starting this bank is a huge win. We have gotten so much positive feedback from the greater New Orleans area, the Louisiana legislate. The FDIC has been amazing. The OFIC has been amazing. So we've been really, I mean, a lot of the wind under our sails are from the people who traditionally are the ones who are the roadblocks, right? So we've really seen a lot of promotion of us just through that because people.
That means that's a need.
Yeah,
they're not going to do
absolutely.
that if there's not a need.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're very excited about that.
And it's crazy how many people that you talk to and like business owners and like, I bank with Chase or Capital One. I'm like, what on earth are you like? Do you have any idea how you're going to make it? Just take a step in growth in your organization. You're going to have people invest in your organization. And if you're not investing in a bank that's local that you can build a relationship with, you're likely going to be told no, or they're going to give you a very limited amount of resources.
And it used to be because they don't have online banking, but that's been solved for years now.
The online, because of the widespread of fintech, really most banks are most banks are going to have pretty much the same online platforms. A lot of those are boilerplate, and we're selling money, which is a commodity, right? It's everybody's dollar at a given time is the same dollar. Mm-hmm. So what differentiates one bank from another? It is relationship and service. And if you are a small business, and by that I mean, let's say 10 million in revenue or less a year. So that's the majority of the business owners that we interact with, or are a great deal of them. You need to know who your banker is. They need to be able to take the time to understand what you're doing as a company. That way they can give you the right counsel, because that is the majority of my job as a commercial lender, and now as the chief credit officer of a bank, is making sure that I understand what is going on, because I need to be able to help them and say, hey, maybe you don't need that much money. Maybe you need half that amount of money, and bootstrap it from there and moving forward. Hey, maybe instead of taking this legal structure, we can talk to, Arena and help figure out another structure that may make more sense. And so if you don't feel like your banker is a resource to you, you need to find another banker. Yeah. And so when you're thinking about Chase or Capital One and these, you have to ask yourself, what is my relationship to these people?
But from a banking standpoint too, it is somewhat frustrating whenever you're working with a banker that doesn't know. You know what I'm saying? Like you ask them and they like say, well, I don't know. I got to go ask my other person that they're going to get on the phone and ask. I don't know who they're calling to ask. But it is pretty frustrating whenever you're dealing, especially from our standpoint. Like they're putting together this deal that they present to us, right? And it's going to be complicated, several properties, and especially from a commercial standpoint. They're using this property, equity in this property, plus they're buying this. The collateral is going to be, 3 or 4 different properties, and you talk to them and they don't know. Yeah, they come to us and wanting us to solve and answer problems that they should be knowing and answering and giving to us too. Yeah. So it is, and even on a local level, I think some of our bankers can be more educated. But I do think you're 100% on point. Like if you're not working with somebody who's able to put the deal together with you, right? And and you do a great job at that. I mean, every time me and you have talked about a deal, like your spreadsheets are as intense or more that you're building for your clients as the ones that they're presenting to you, I'm sure. And you're giving them counsel. So, I mean, and that's from your background. So tell a little about your background, about what you did before you got back to the United States.
Before I got back to you. So, so I went to graduate school in Germany at a university called Goethe, an amazing university in Frankfurt. And so I was really just studying. I focused primarily on real estate markets, real estate economics, real estate modeling, real estate pricing dynamics, all of those things. I just love real estate. And I knew that it was something that as a family that we were going to be focused on. So I wanted to be as technically proficient as I reasonably could. After that, I worked with startups as a fractional CFO type of role, if y'all are familiar with that. So companies that are not quite established enough to hire a full-time finance guy, but needed help making some investment decisions, going into capital raises, things like that. I did that for, I guess, maybe 1.5 to 2 years while I was there. And then at some point, the Russian-Ukraine war popped off. We were getting, German public radio station update saying to know where the nearest nuclear bunkers were. And this was early in the war. And I thought, it's probably about time to head back to America. And then that's whenever I got the call from Albert Kelleher, who's another amazing, maybe the best banker I've ever met in my life. He's a New Orleans banker who works with Planters Bank, which is a wonderful bank. And got the call from him and just said, hey, we're entering into the New Orleans market with this new bank. And Albert and I had worked at two previous banks together, and we need an analyst that's going to be able to handle these kind of weirder, bigger real estate projects. And I was like, I'm your guy, let's do it. And that's how I got back here.
Yeah. So let's transition a little bit into, a business owner that's looking to grow and scale with real estate, whether they want to start investing in real estate themselves or their business is going to invest. So what do you, like, as a banker, what advice can you give to a business owner who's thinking about taking that step? Again, we'll start with, you're a business owner and you want to invest in a property that you're going to operate out of that's going to help your balance sheet, like Lauren always talks about.
Yeah. I would say if you're talking about an owner operated scenario, so you've been renting a place out for X amount of time and you're thinking that maybe purchasing the property would make sense for you for a number of reasons. One, just to capture that equity and to capture the value chain of real estate ownership. Two, maybe just to have more physical control over the property. You want to knock a wall down, you just knock it down. So there's a few reasons why people from an owner-occupied view, an operational view, would see that there's a benefit in doing that. I would just say, from a broader investment perspective, just realize that real estate investment is an entire system unto itself. From the transaction level, and Sam and I have this conversation ad nauseum, from the transaction side, the management side, property taxes, maintenance reserves, all of these things. If you're already tapped out operationally with what you're doing as a business, do not think that just buying a property is going to be a throwaway, passive investment. There are no passive investments.
No one to call. When you're the owner, you're calling you.
Yes. And so that will be an additional operational consideration for you. You need to be prepared for that. And you need to also make sure that you're going into this eyes wide open.
Yeah. I think, so we get a lot of calls and we love it. I always joke, I'm like, man, we really should start some kind of consulting business because whether it's people that we worked with previously or past clients or friends, family, whatever it is, they'll call us all things real estate. And one of the things that Sawyer and I often talk about is real estate has become what CrossFit was in like the 2010s. Everybody wants real estate now. Everybody's like, it's just the newest thing. This is what you do. You want to be successful, do real estate. And we get these phone calls and our, circle will tell us, well, this is the deal. And we're like, hold on a second. You're so excited about owning real estate that you're really about to step into something that is not a good deal.
Right.
And so I think that one of the things that we caution people a lot is we understand the desire, but you have to make sure that the deal is right. I understand that maybe you were up late one night and you're watching somebody's Facebook Live or a reel and you're like, that's it. This is the key. Right. We're going to house hack. Calm down. You know what I'm saying? Like really, everybody's situation is going to be different. And like Sawyer's saying, it's not like, you're a baker and you want to add another oven. This is its own entity. And a lot of the times we find when these people do want to grow, we talk about this too. One of the biggest killers for businesses isn't lack of revenue. It's growing too fast.
Yeah.
Too quick. You think that you're ready and then all of a sudden your business doubles and you don't have the infrastructure. You don't have the operational capacity. And then you sink a really good business. And so I think that whenever it comes to the purchasing, whether it's, an owner operator that wants their own building, it has to make sense.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to have patience. You have to find the right deal. And you also have to have the awareness that even though you really want it, if it's not the right thing, purchasing a hefty piece of real estate is not a decision that you can make and it will just buff out.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a good time to let your emotions take a back seat. And also it is an American ideal to own, And so, for example, people are really proud to say, I own my home. This is a social status that we have within America that, for example, you don't see in other places. In Europe, for example, there's not really a a premium of saying I own my place versus I rent my place.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of emotional window dressing around ownership, particularly around real estate. Now that the doom and gloom is, the warnings have been shot, warning flares have been shot across the bow. In many, many, many cases, it's owning real estate is a wonderful thing. Part of what I did in my research when I was in Germany was looking at wealth evolution, family level wealth evolution. And if you do that and you see the people who've made the greatest shifts in socioeconomic status within one lifetime, really the only commonality is real estate. The only stable commonality is that they purchased early, they held for long periods of time. Obviously, Sam and I have dedicated our careers, our one life to this asset class. So I am anything but negative on real estate. I think the most common thing when people enter that conversation with me with no context is I just want to kind of temper them a little bit and say, hey, this can be a really good thing, but there is an entire world here that needs to be taken into consideration. Doctors, lawyers, lawyers. So there are a lot of people who are very smart, very competent in their field and say, I'll just figure this out. You can do that, but you do need to figure it out.
Yeah.
For the love of everything holy, figure
Yes.
it out before it gets to us.
Yeah.
We have the same issue, right?
Yeah.
We have the same problem. And I don't want to say it as a problem because I love supporting people in their passions. And these are new passions that they find, and they are very excited about them. And we want the deals to go through for them in the right way because we don't want it to be a headache later.
Absolutely.
I think the clarity and it makes sense. Like you've dealt with it, but the clarity around the operational strain it's going to put on your organization when you buy a piece of real estate is definitely something taken into consideration.
It's not negligible.
Yeah, I mean, just like little things like that pile of dirt that's been on this floor for like 6 months that I always think about when I'm in here cleaning up. Like, nobody else is gonna clean that up but me. And I know that's not a great example, but like just things like the flags falling off the side of the building when the wind happened last week, and like somebody having to clean the spill off the porch. Like you constantly have to be paying attention because it's your property, and your team has to be able to step up and handle that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Property
and
taxes,
all the
you know?
expenses you play into. I mean, we talk about it every year in December. Your insurance comes out and that goes up. Your taxes come out and that goes up. And like you're not locked into a rent rate that's gonna be for the next 3 to 5 years. Make that decision if you want to pivot. It's yours. So I mean, that's a great piece of advice for business owners to consider.
Well, let's talk about who would be in a position to do that. I think that's also helpful.
Yeah.
If you have your operations are stable, your year-on-year revenue is large enough to support the debt that you would be putting on that property, that it's not going to strain you, and it's also not going to stop you from growing, right? Because these types of internal cash reinvestments are the number one way that companies are going to grow in a stable way. So, for example, y'all run a law group, right? So your money, you're going to be able to convert and invest those dollars in growing your team, doing the things that you have spent your career getting good at. You're going to be more efficient at converting those dollars into a higher return on that investment than you would in real estate in many cases, because that's what you do,
It's your focus.
right? So it's your core
Stay intent.
competency.
Yeah.
And so if there is a practical reason why owning the property is going to make sense for you now and in the future, and you have the cash to do it, and the company's revenues and operations are stable enough that it can support that cash flow, give me a call. We'll get it done. Then that's where you should be. If you're looking at investing in real estate as a separate line of business, which is maybe the most common thing that I see, because from an owner operating perspective, I find typically the clients that come to me have a really good idea of where they sit, because if they got to that point, they have spent so much time focusing on their business. They understand why they're doing it. They understand roughly how much it's going to cost. They've talked to other competitors or friends within the market. They know what it means.
Yeah.
The more common loose questions that I will get are from people who are saying, for example, hey, I'm a doctor. I make $500,000 a year. My expenses are $130,000 a year. I've got all of this excess cash. I'm slamming it into bonds. I want to maybe buy some real estate. What do I suggest for that?
And on the same token, and I'm glad you transitioned, real estate agents who are real estate professionals that then they want to go invest in real estate thinking that it correlates.
Yes. So the investment side can be, So, and that's where, depending on what level of real estate agent you are, because there's agents and then there's like Sam agents that know how markets work and know how pricing works. So there's levels of those. But yeah, that's another common thing. People who are in the transaction side versus the investment holding side. Those can be different skills too. Definitely.
And different from the management side.
And different from the management
It's
side.
also different.
And this is, I always tell people, when you purchase a property, it is a small business. You are starting a small business. It's going to have its own LLC. It's going to have its own tax revenue and expenses. It's going to have its own maintenance. It's going to have its own operational challenges. These are things you need to be aware of that and look at this as a small business, because that is what you're doing when you buy a piece of real estate. It isn't. There's nothing passive about it.
No, it's mailbox money. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I read a book on it.
And I went from
Anything?
one double to 45 properties in 6 months, and now
Tiki
I'm
Taki told me.
a billionaire. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but there are ways of doing that. And the number one piece of advice that I can give those people is find professionals who know what they're doing.
Yes.
Find an agent who knows how to find the right properties in the right locations, who understand how markets work. Find a good banker who's going to be able to help you structure the debt that you need to structure. That's going to be able to get you in the right product at the right price, given all of the features and factors of your particular profile. Find the right law firm that's going to help you put that in the right organizational structure. Find a good CPA who's going to help you make sure that you're taking advantage of all of the tax benefits that owning real estate can give you. Find those experts. You will not become an expert in all of those fields.
And or a property manager or your handyman.
Yes.
That's the only way that you can go and operate that business,
Yeah.
just being you and it not taking over your life, is if you're resourceful with the right partners.
And maybe if you're extremely cash flush and your career is really demanding and those things are typically connected to one another, find a partner. Find someone who is a currently a growing and scaling real estate investor and join them as a partner. And you can be the equity hand within that. You can also have help make decisions at a global level. But in terms of the nitty gritty, they are hyper specialized in that. And I have many clients who are pairs like that. One is more of the cash partner and the other one is the operational partner. Those partnerships can be extremely lucrative, extremely effective for both parties, where everyone is happy. So I would also suggest doing that too.
Yeah, I love that. Yep. And we get so many questions about people coming in. And the hard part is a lot of times around here, the first time investor doesn't understand the value of all those people you're talking about. And they're not willing to
because they haven't
to cut the checks.
They haven't done it.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, everything that you were just talking about, and the one, not the one thing, but one of the many things that the four of us can agree on and that we do very well is, like, I do what I do. And if something else has to be done, I'm finding the professional who does that. Like in all of my real estate transactions, if a client is like, well, what about my insurance? Can you give me a rough estimate? Absolutely not.
I got a guy.
Absolutely not. Well, what about absolutely not.
We've been recently having people that will actually go online and pull off some documents and use those documents because they're like, oh, well, this will get it done. It's like, you've been in business long enough to get some confidence, but you haven't been in business long enough to have something really hit the fan,
Yeah.
But
and it's frustrating for us because, like, we
We don't want to watch them be harmed later when we know it's what's going to happen.
And and we try to be reasonable with how we do things and the way that we charge for it. I mean, and our whole MO and job is to make sure that every single time you're protected, not for the 99% of the time that things go right, but it's that 1% that go wrong.
Right.
That you've been doing the process, that your operating system and your process is there so that you are protected in that 1 out of 100 chance that something actually happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
it's the relational aspect. And that's kind of what I was, I know that the majority of the people that listen to this are business owners that, are considering getting into commercial or how to scale their business. And I think that we all agree on this as well, is if you really want to do that, the core of that movement is relationships. And this is something that Sawyer and I often, if not, this is our most talked about topic, is the relationships that you have. And whenever we're talking about doing real estate transactions, I can't tell you how many times I'll call Sawyer in the middle of the week. I'm like, how's it going? He's like, dude. And I just start laughing and I'm like, yeah, what's going on? And he's like, either it's a title company that I haven't worked with, or it's a this that I haven't worked with. And, even on my side, whenever I'm working deals, I'm like, hey, listen, this is the lender that we're going to use. This is who I suggest. This is the title company. And you always get the question, well, why? And it's like, well, it's because I know that I can call Jared or Lauren at midnight and they're going to answer the phone. If I need an answer.
We're crazy.
And I try not to call you guys at midnight. But that is really what moves the needle. And even with Sawyer, stepping into this new role, one of the things that he has been so excited about is, this is his opportunity to shape something from the top. But it's not, this is the direction we're going. And the thing that he's so excited to talk about is, what is the team going to look like? Who is it that I want to fill these gaps? Because the both of us realize that if you really want to do something great, you can't do it alone. And if you're gonna do something great, you have to understand and accept I'm good at this, and these are all of my weaknesses. And instead of trying to be everything to everyone, I'm gonna focus on what I do, and I'm gonna find the best person for this spot, and then the best person for this spot, and having that team that you trust, and even all of us. Anything that comes up, I'm calling you, you're calling Sawyer, I'm calling Lauren, and it's like having those people in your back pocket. I think that's really what makes successful people or successful businesses. It's never one person who stands alone and does it all. It's the person that's got the Rolodex that it's like, who do you need? And that's my favorite thing. And my beautiful wife sometimes gets frustrated with me. I love
Wait,
being
what is she? Your what?
my beautiful wife.
Your wife.
2 weeks new, 3 weeks. You've been 3 weeks.
No, we're a little over a month, man. If you guys want some marriage advice, I'll give you some.
Yes.
I'm kidding.
Seasoned, hardened.
One of the things that I love that honestly I get the most fulfillment from out of my life is that if someone in my sphere of influence needs something, 9 out of 10 times they're going to call me and go, do you know somebody who does this? And I love being able to say, yeah, let me send you a contact real quick. He's going to treat you like family. She's going to treat you like family. That is the lubrication in the gear of success, is who you know, who can you connect people with. And it's having the relational equity
that's the right word.
If I call you and say, hey, Sawyer needs something, or vice versa, whenever Sawyer just moved back from Germany, you guys were sitting trying to figure this out, and, you guys had met Sawyer, but I called Sawyer and I said, hey, man, Jared Miguez and the team, Lauren, John, Becky, they want to pick your brain.
Yeah.
And Sawyer knows that we have the relationship that we have. So now you've got access to Sawyer. And it's not like, look, man, I can give you 15 minutes. It's my schedule is cleared. What do you need? And then you sit down and you have these meaningful conversations. But that's the asset that you need to be looking for. Building the team, not just in your own four walls, but the people that are around you.
For sure. Being resourceful. That's what Lauren always says, being resourceful.
Most successful people in the world. That's their key.
Yeah. I was just thinking it as you're talking, all the times that both of you have had my back, driving me home and getting me canes at midnight.
That's what friends are for, man.
And me and you talking on the phone. I remember you driving back from Hammond. It was like 10 o'clock at night. And we're just shooting the shit while you're driving. So it's been fun. It's been a good relationship. Well, this was fast conversation, in my opinion. It was all good stuff for people.
Yeah,
we definitely need to do it again. So appreciate having the Benson boys on for the first time. This won't be the only time.
Say boys.
Boys.
Boys with a Z.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Yes,
you all.
sir. Thank
This
you.
was awesome.